we had a typewriter. But then when I was in elementary school, we had like a legit like computer lab, but it was the old Apple, and it was in the back of the library. There was like 15 or 20 computers, and they were fucking giant. They were huge, and yeah, and then I actually remember having like computer class where they taught you how to like type, use the internet. You're like, this is now now the kids are born with a fucking data plan and an iPhone. That's how they come into this world. You're like, I don't get it. I don't, it's too much. It's too much. I like, if you saw my desk right now, I have notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks upon like a wall of just jokes. I like to write things out. I mean, I use my laptop, but I don't know. I'm old.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel more connected to the material when you write it out.
me too. I
Yeah.
know. Remember when you first started and you thought comedy was going to be a breeze, and then you had that moment like, oh my God, it's work.
Yeah, excuse me. I actually, to be honest with you, I don't know if this is the norm, but like I've always loved stand-up. I've never looked at it as work. Comedy, writing, being funny, it's never been an issue for me. It's like the business side of it that makes it more difficult. Like producers, bookers, clubs, where you're like, this doesn't need to be this hard. The writing
Yeah.
and the material, I come from a funny family. So it's like you either had to be funny or you got eaten alive.
Oh my
So,
gosh, tell me about your family, and then I'll do your introduction.
okay. So I was raised as an only child, and I'm the baby of all the first cousins. So when my biological parents split, um, I would spend some time with my aunt and aunt and uncle's house, and she had five kids, so I was one. Now I became like the sixth child. So she would watch me, and and I would spend weekends there sometimes, and so you just had to be funny. You had to be funny in that house. But like everybody in general, when you got everyone in the family together, I mean, I've never met funnier people than some of the people in my family. Like it cracks me up because um the funniest people in our lives are typically not comedians. Like comedians are funny. Like we can write material and get on stage and perform, but like, I mean, my cousin Mike and Sharon and Ralphie and Vinny and Anthony, like everybody would just rip you to shreds. Like they are the funniest fucking people in the world. And my dad's hilarious. So
Yeah.
he's such a great my dad's such a great storyteller. And so you just, I don't know, you just grew into it. It's like, I don't know if it's in your DNA, but if it is, then I have it. Whatever it is, I've got it.
So cool. I have to, I almost don't even want to say your introduction. Most people just come onto the show and watch the introduction and leave. So I've started talking to people first and then
Yeah.
doing the intro. Because, like, if you that's all you care about, we're going to hook you first.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you know what? Whatever this is, you are the captain of this ship. So,
It's going down like the Titanic.
oh, don't say that. Not at all.
If I'm the captain, I don't even drive. Okay. Hey, you guys at home watching, I hope you're laughing because you've got some real talent here in front of you. Wait until you hear his intro. You want to know his name? Well, I'm not going to tell you yet because you guys have shown me you split. So I'm going to do it my way. Sit back and watch the blinking lights as we have fun. Okay, I'll tell you his name. It's Ralph Anthony. Okay. Ralph Anthony, there he is, smiling and waving, is a New York City based comedian and writer whose material primarily derived from the stories and unique observations of the world we live in. That's where it's from. A high energy goofball, my kind of guy, with lots to say. Anthony was deemed the mouth. by his childhood friends and hasn't stopped making people laugh since. In addition to being a bi-coastal comedian, he's headlined, believe this, oh my gosh, headlined the former Carolines on Broadway, as well as traveled overseas to Europe, where he's performed at some of the top shows and clubs in London and Paris. Most recently, Anthony released his debut album, 40 by 40, which is available on all streaming services. I haven't even released a balloon into the air. You guys, welcome to the stage right now, Ralph Anthony. Woo! Hi, Dan. Hi. Hi,
Oh man.
Ralph.
Good
Well, let's
morning.
get
Thank
back
you.
to your dad. Is he single?
Excuse me? Am
Is
I
he
single? Yeah.
single?
Oh, very, very much single. Yeah. Single, mingling. Life is fucking good. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you
Yeah.
come from a funny family. Tell me some funny things that happened because I had a funny dad,
Okay.
but everybody else in the family was suppressed, depressed, whatever.
Yeah. So you're telling me that your family loves their medication.
Yeah. That
uh
my family survived Hitler's downsizing program.
oh, nice. I could,
Yeah.
that's a
But my dad, he came out of it just ready to make people laugh.
hell yeah. Well, that's how you got to do it. That's how you got. That you got to be the funny person. Keep people not thinking about trying to kill you.
Yeah, the good days, getting out of there. But up to
Yeah.
you. Tell me some funny stuff about your family. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, all right. So when I was a kid, I love scary movies now. Okay, but when I was a kid, I was a baby, so I never had a voice. I never had anything to say. Nobody ever listened to me. And when my Uncle Bucky would come home from work, everybody would in the house. My Aunt Betsy, she would be making dinner, so everybody would grab their plates. He would come down. Everybody gather around the TV, and he would always put on a scary movie. And this is the 80s, so you had like the old classics like Freddy Krueger, Jason, Michael Myers, um, Candyman, like all these great classic movies. And so because I was the baby, I would be the one that had to go to bed first. And so they lived in this house in Poughkeepsie, one, two, three. It was a two-story house. Um, and I would stay in my cousin Lance's room. And so I would be the first one to go to bed, and I would get up there. My Aunt Betsy, she would tuck me in, whatever, lights out, good night. And then like an hour or two later, like right when you're in that, like right getting into like that deep sleep, my cousin, who used to be the baby, but now I was the baby, would just fuck with me incessantly. Like he would put on a Freddy Krueger mask, he would put on the glove, and he would wake me up sometimes by running those Freddy Krueger blades down my arm to wake me up.
Oh my gosh.
I was like 7 years old. I was 8 years old. Like I was such a child. And so it now I look back and you're like, oh yeah, trauma's funny. That's hilarious. Uh, Back then, I'm surprised that she didn't put a plastic sheet on the bed because I felt like I was pissing myself at least once a month. So most of my stories are funny now, but like back then they were very frightening. Like so I'd Lance doing that to me when I was trying to sleep. Mike and Sharon would lock me in the basement. Whoever would lock me in the basement, the other one was always down there. Um, And so what they would tell me was that there was a man behind the furnace. That's how it was, the man behind the furnace. And I don't know who he was, a homeless man. I don't know. A fucking crackhead didn't like there was just a man behind the furnace. And and so they would lock me in there and I would freak out, freak out because you would hear the shuffling behind the furnace, and then one of them would start to like show like a body part, like a leg or an arm, like they were trying to get out, saying my name, trying to come get me.
God.
And it was intense. It was intense. But those are
Wow.
two like very sad, but I guess very funny stories now. Just about growing up. But like my dad was always such a great storyteller. He traveled across country twice in the 70s. I mean, he like backpacked from I think it was from like San Francisco down to San Diego. Just like I don't know, fucking bebopping, moving and grooving. I mean, it was the 70s. So I can only imagine looking at my life, um, and imagining how should I put this? Imagining what a social butterfly my father was. Because uh yeah, the shot glass doesn't fall far from the bottle. Just partying and having a good time.
Would you consider him to be like a hippie?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Oh my
so
God.
cool.
Yeah. My dad, I mean, he was a musician. So back then, my dad was a snare drummer. So at that point, he just decided with some of his buddies, he was in a drum and bugle corps. So like if you ever see the movie Drumline, that's what my dad did professionally, which was just so badass. I really honestly like I credit my dad for many things, but uh one being a great storyteller, teach me how to tell a story, and two, just my love of music. I mean, this is Aerosmith. I mean, it's one of my favorite groups of all time. My dad loved Aerosmith. I remember finding his album, Toys in the Attic, and I loved it just because it was a cartoon, and I was like fucking 7 years old. Like that's when I was a kid, that's what I used to listen to. Aerosmith, Boston, Kansas, Tower of Power. Um, Oh my God. Earth, Wind and Fire. Um, Stevie Winwood. Fleetwood Mac. Supertramp. Uh, I mean, the list could. I found Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. I was like 10. Listen to this Piano Man. Like all
Wow.
these amazing albums. Um, and so that's how I fell in love with music. And I remember trying to like imitate my dad because he would drum when he was driving. This is the 80s and 90s. So you put the cassette in, and he would be drumming on the steering wheel. And I would try to imitate him. And he goes, your fingers don't move the way that a drummer's hands would move. So you would probably be better off playing piano. And so that's when I got to college, I went to school for music and started to play piano. But I couldn't keep it up. I used to be a bouncer among many other things. Um, and used to get into a lot of fights. So
Yes,
I couldn't hold the keys the way that I need to. But reading music and whatnot, that was
you've got that.
yeah. Yeah. Yes,
So in
ma'am.
your mind, you're a piano player, but your fingers just won't behave.
No, not at all. Yeah. I mean, it's been years since I sat in front of a keyboard or a piano and played, but
Tell me about a lot of your jobs that you had. You
oh
said
my
you
God.
did a lot plus many other things. Let's hear some of those before you were famous kind of things.
Oh my God. I think my favorite out of I mean, I was a cook for like 8 years. That was always I love being a cook. I love being in kitchens and pizzerias, and I mean that's where I grew up. It was predominantly Italian, so it was like you either worked in there was three main pizzerias and then one giant Italian restaurant called Casa Mia, and anyone that went to my high school worked in one of those four places. So it was fun. Um, it was fun. That's probably my favorite. I really lucked out with cooking because my first boss was first generation Italian, went to the culinary. My second boss was right off the boat from Crete, and my last boss was right off the boat from Palermo. So I learned I don't like I learned such an old school way of cooking. Like I don't use measuring cups. Like I eyeball everything. I use my hand. I mean, you can't really see it here, but like a cup. would be like a handful for me. I don't know. It's just like weird little things that you pick up, but um that was my favorite job. Before that, I worked as a busboy and a barback in a comedy club. It was my friend's parents' place. Yeah. Um,
A real club?
like a real club. Yeah. Shout out to the Laughing Wolf Comedy Club out in New Paltz. Yeah. I mean, I'm going back. Oh, fuck. I'm going back almost 30 years ago. I mean, I'm 42. I was 14 when I was working there. So it was since it was my friend's place, my friend's parents' place, we used to be outside and we would, yeah, obviously we would be helping park cars, not driving them, but like with flashlights. No, you got to park here, you got to park here, you got to park there. But this place would blow up. I mean, they had a steakhouse in the front and then this giant, oh my God, you could fit 300 people in this back room.
Jeez.
400 people. It was like almost like a giant, you could have weddings there. I mean, it was like a giant banquet hall. And they would pack this place out. And I just fell in love with like being there, just the energy. So we would get done parking cars and we'd like sit at the bar and have dinner and then either go like fuck around and hang out or just go like hang out in the back of the show. But I loved it so much and I didn't know why. But like I would just tell my parents that I had to work, even though I wasn't working. Like I wasn't on the schedule or anything. I would just go and hang out. That's how much I loved being in that environment. And I can only imagine if I had that guidance back then, I was 14. If I wasn't so scared to be in front of people, um, and even knew that comedy was a possible profession, uh, I would have done this, 15 years before I even started. But everything happens for a reason. Like I wouldn't be who I am today without going through what I went through before. So, uh,
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm happy to be here.
So
Yeah.
when was the first time that you went on stage? How'd that happen? Did you get trained? Did you just jump in and do it? Was it a dare? Was it to get women? What was the deal?
To be honest with you, what prompted me to get into stand up was I blacked out for an entire 4th of July weekend. Um, I used to be uh I was a real partier. I was a fucking booze bag and I mean, I would drink and toot my way through fucking life. Like you put it in front of me and I was doing it. That was pretty much my mentality. It didn't phase me one bit. And so I was up in Albany at the time and so I blacked out the entire weekend. And when I showed up on Sunday for lunch, my homegirl Laura was like, "You were really funny last night." And I go, "Oh God." Whenever I would hear that, it was either I had to apologize to someone, I had to pay for something that I broke, or I was in timeout and couldn't come back. And yeah, yeah, life of the party. Let me tell you, there wasn't again. I was down for it all, and it was the best. I fucking loved it. I've got Linda, I got stories for days. It's disturbing how many stories I fucking have. So I show up and she says that, and I was like, "Fuck, all right. Well, what do I have to do now?" And she goes, "No, no, no. You were really fine." So inadvertently, what had happened was in Albany we have this street called Lark Street, and our buddy John owned 3 bars right at the end. So we had Legends, Justin's, and DeJohn's, and they were all pretty much like in a triangle like this. And so we used to call it, you're welcome, Albany. I used to call it the Bermuda Triangle because you remember going in, but you don't remember coming out. And and so we would just bounce around Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We would just bounce around to all 3 spots. All my friends were there. Like it was just a never-ending party. We just had the best time. Like people sleep on upstate New York, and you know, I don't know what it's like now. It's certainly not like what it was back then, but I had a fucking blast. And so this was probably around, God, it had to have been around like 3 a.m. We were sitting in the back room of Justin's, waiting for our buddies who were bartenders to kick all the other normal people out, all the paying customers out. So all of us, because there was like 15 or 20 of us that would hang out till 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning while they cleaned the bar, hung out, and drank. And we would be right there. Obviously, we had the drinking power. So we were in the back waiting, but the people up front were like all fucked up and they took forever. And I was bored and I was drunk and I just got up and I started cracking jokes and I just started making people laugh. So she told me that that's what I had done, and I said, "Oh God, do I have to apologize to anybody?" She was like, "No, you're really funny. Have you ever tried doing stand-up comedy? You should do it." And I said, what I should do is stop drinking. That's what I should fucking do. Let's be honest. And uh and so I stopped drinking for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And the one thing that stuck with me was trying to do stand up. And so I grew up like loving George Carlin. George Carlin to me is the greatest of all time. There's not even a contention. It's not even in. There's not there. There's no. There's not even a contest. Like he's the greatest to me. And um, and so one of the
Did
things
you
that I
ever meet him?
no, oh my God, no, I wish.
I did.
Fuck, really?
I'll tell you about it.
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. I can only imagine how nice of a guy he was because I read Gary Shandling's book, and Carlin was out in Arizona doing some spots, and Gary drove like 2 hours, 2.5 hours one way to see him. And he was like, "Hey, listen, I'm a big fan. I'm a comedian. These are some of the things that I wrote. I would love to get your input if you had a chance to, if you could read it and take a look and let me know if basically like if I'm on the right track." And so he left the stuff there. Carlin told him to come back. So he drove 2.5 hours, dropped the stuff off, drove 2.5 hours home, drove 2.5 hours back like the next day or a few days later, only to find out that Carlin had left the club, I guess, early or whatever. But in the back room, in the green room, was all of Gary's jokes with write-ups like marked up, and Carlin critiqued everything that was there and told him this and this and this, you could change this and move this all around. And it was a very profound moment for him. So I can only imagine what it was like for someone like yourself to meet him in person. It's one of those things where if I had that, I'd probably start crying. I would probably start crying. That's how much of an impact he has had on my life. And I mean, the same could be said for, I mean, Chris Rock, Richard Pryor. I mean, that's the comedy that I gravitate towards. Observation, storytelling, talking about your pain. Um, that's or I mean, your pain, what you went through, your experiences. Um, so he had this thing where he said, find what makes you nuts, find what drives you nuts, and make it funny. And so at that time, I was working this corporate job in downtown Albany, and and I just got really annoyed with white people. I have been constantly annoyed with them, with us for years, decades. And so I was like, how can I make this funny? And whether it was just like plastic surgery, basic interactions, the thing that got me, and to this day, it's still one of my favorite jokes to do. And it's so fucked up, but white people are the only ones who put their dogs in strollers, but their kids on leashes. And, and so that was my first, that was the foundation for my first joke. and it was called White People Are Fucking Nuts. And I don't get it. No, it's still to this day, it doesn't make sense to me. But in the as the years have gone on, I've, trimmed the fat and just like made this joke a little bit more muscular, and it's so much fun to do. But that was the first joke that I ever wrote. And so I went down to this place called Savannah. Shout out to Savannah's. It's no longer there anymore. And so my buddy Tony was running the show, and Tony was like a miniature version of Michael Clark Duncan. I mean, he was just like this shorter, just massive black dude. And so the room was pretty much like a black room. And I went up there. He gave me 4 minutes. I was shitting in my pants the entire time. And I went up in a black room and just shit on white people. And it was the fucking best. Tony said the funniest part about about literally about watching me the first time was the jokes were great. They were funny, but the best part for him was watching me trying to tell jokes while getting applause breaks. Like I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't know you were supposed to stop. Like I was like trying to get through the jokes. I'm like, in my mind, I was like, can you guys stop fucking laughing, please? Like, can you let me just tell these jokes? Like, I don't know what you think I'm trying to do up here. I'm trying to make you laugh, but can you stop laughing so I can get through the jokes, please? So that
I've
was,
been there, I've done it. I know what you mean.
yeah, you're like, hey, listen, I know you're having a good time, but I'm trying to have a good time too. So that was the first time I ever got on stage. I got applause breaks. It was electric. But it was very true to what they say. If you go up and you kill the first time you're on stage, you will bomb forever. And that's what happened. And I was still so young in doing stand up that I thought I needed 5 minutes every week. And so I would sit and like I've always been a writer, so I would just write and 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 not refine anything. I would just write and write and write and just perform. And I never recorded my sets in the beginning, and it was awful. And but it made me who I am. And to this day, when I headline Caroline's, that bit was my closing bit. It was a little tip of the cap to my comedy roots. And and when I moved here, it was I mean, that's why you moved to New York. I mean, nobody who moves to New York and is like, I'm gonna move here and pay 3 grand a month for rent for no reason. You're like, no, I'm moving here to do stand up, and that's how this all came about.
That's so cool. Tell me about Caroline's, because I was hired by them in 1998.
Okay.
And my name is Linda Marcus Smith because Linda Smith didn't want two Linda Smiths in comedy.
Oh my God, Linda Smith is a comedic angel. Linda, let me tell you, I haven't seen Linda since before COVID, and if she called me right now and was like, "Hey, I need you to do this for me," done in a heartbeat. Linda was the reason why I got passed at Caroline's. She, I have a friend, Laura, who also headlined Caroline's and is just such one of the hardest working, one of the funniest people I know in comedy. And also just aside from being funny, if you're fucking nice in this business, that's like a superpower. Like it sounds so corny to say, but it's like, yo, just be cool. Just be cool. They're just jokes. You don't need to step on people's back. You don't need to talk about other people. You don't need to fucking knife someone just to get ahead. Just be cool and just be funny. That's how
That,
you make it in this business. Just be a nice person and be funny and work hard. That's it. That's the 3 things to success. Anyway, so Laura told
that's
me that
so true. Thank you. I want to underscore that by saying, man, you see everything. And when you see somebody that's being nice that's the best thing I've ever heard. It's a superpower.
yeah, yeah, and I'll tell you what, that's the funniest thing because like I love the idea of killing them with kindness. Like just be cool, just be nice. A lot of the comics, a lot of the people I interact with have no idea who I used to be, how I used to be in my 20s. And I used to have a temper. I have no tolerance for bullshit. I'm a big boy. Don't fuck with me. Like I'm not the person to fuck with. Like please don't. I don't want to go back to who I used to be. Like
Yeah,
just
don't make me.
yeah, don't please don't. Just be cool. Just be cool. Like I will literally I'll fuck you up. Like just be cool.
I
Uh
can I look really sweet, but if you mess with me, I'll come out swinging. I got more comebacks. I can you will just be so sorry because like I used to until I was like 60, 50, until 2014 I let everybody in my life from 51 to 2014 I was a doormat. And
oh
I'm
fuck.
done. I'm done. And nobody, don't even try saying something that's a slap in the face compliment. What about you?
I mean, because I'm so big, I just laugh a lot of things off. And then when I went to acting school, my instructor was like, just confront them. Just confront them. Um, you know, yeah, just don't laugh it off. Not at all. Yeah. It's so
So
fun.
tell me about Paris and where else in Europe did you go?
Uh,
Paris and London.
yeah, I was in Paris and London, and so I had the opportunity. I had so I had my God, this was 2018. Um, I had been through a 4 month long breakup with someone in 2017, and I loved this girl so much. Very passionate. Like there's just there was a lot of it was to this day, it was one of the greatest relationships. But it like the great relationships, if they don't work, it's always funny when people are like, let's be friends. You're like, there's too much passion, there's too much energy between the two of us. Like, um, it did not go well. And it, it's so it was a brutal first 3 months, and then we ended up spending New Year's Eve together, and I thought we were getting back together, and we were in this still awkward stage where like we were still in love with each other, we were still hooking up, but we were also like dating other people because we weren't together. And finally when I left her apartment one morning, um it was in March. I'll never forget it. It was raining. She lived in Sutton Place. It was March 2018. It's morning, Wednesday morning, and I was leaving. I had to go to work. And I was going on the road that weekend to Boston for my first like official road weekend. And she just said something that like hit me right here. And I was like, I can't fucking take this. And so at that point, I had just started therapy. Therapy, the breakup was what prompted me to get into therapy. And um, before that, I was like the kind of guy where like I would just fuck my feelings away. Like that's just how I would just that's how I would numb the pain. I would just whore myself out and to try to fill any void that I had possible. And that's what I was doing. And I ended up and so I was running a show in the village at the Grizzly Pear, and which is ironically where I met my ex. I was running a show, and she came out, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to see a comedy show?" And she goes, "No, not really. I don't think you're funny at all. You haven't made me laugh once." And uh, so that was who I came from, and so I met this girl. She's gorgeous, one of the most beautiful women I've ever been with, whatever. Um, and she was Middle Eastern. She was from London, and oh my God, I still have the pictures. Like that's we had such a wild it was like a wild weekend romance and I fell in love with her instantly. Like, oh my God. I remember telling my therapist, I was like, I think I might move to London. She was like, "What?" He goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" I've been her patient, mind you, 5 months. That's it. 5 months. I walked in rock bottom, depressed, just dumped, can't deal with life. And now I'm like, I met somebody. I think I might be moving to London. I might do intercontinental. Mind you, I couldn't date a girl in a different borough. That's what a snob I was in the city when I lived in Manhattan. And but like that weekend, it was so passionate. Like it was unreal. And and uh and so I was like, I'm coming to London, I'm gonna see you. And she was like, great. And so, excuse me. And so I booked the ticket and I was like, well, I'm gonna do some shows as well. Because she knew obviously she knew I was a comic. I was barking for my show. And so I wanted her and her friend to come to the show, and they ended up coming to the show, and then that's how everything kind of came out. Ladies love funny dudes, and that's the best part. Thank God I'm in shape now, because I don't know how long I'm gonna ride these jokes for, but the muscles make up for the punchlines. And and so I booked this trip. I start booking shows in London because that's how it was. I was like, I'm gonna see her, I'm gonna do these shows, and then I'm gonna do some sightseeing. And as the weeks went on, things got different between us. Now, mind you, I already booked the ticket, I'm already booking these shows. What I came to realize once I got to fucking London was I was her American getaway. She I was like her last fucking fling. Like that was it. And I only found this out because I was in London for 9 days, 10 days, something like that. I texted her when I was leaving, texted her when I landed, and then I didn't hear from her till like the second to last day that I was there. And she was just like, yeah, I can't really meet. I was like, I've been here for a fucking week. Like, I knew where, like, whatever. I was always a cheat. And at that point, I was like, we're not even that serious. And so I was already mingling around the London bar scene. And so I was like, whatever. Again, I'm just gonna go out and drink and sleep my way through these feelings. And but that's how this all came about. I went to see a girl who ended up being in a relationship, and then I just continued and stayed to do comedy. And so I was over there for 2 weeks, and I was there 2 weeks. I did 11 shows all over London and all over Paris, and it was amazing. Honestly, yo, doing shows in London and overseas, you don't realize how many expats are over there. Like they crave American comedy. And I credit being a comic in New York, dealing with all these different crowds, and especially being so good at crowd work, because my first two, three shows, like if I relied on my material, I would have bombed my dick off. Like it was awful. Awful. I remember I made a Tom Brady reference, and some lady looked at me and she was like, "Who's Tom Brady?" I was like, "What? This is one of the most famous athletes in this country." You're like, "You're not in America anymore, buddy." So that's how that whole trip came about, and it was a very life-changing moment for me. I love being in Paris. Um, it's just it's such a happy place for me.
That's
It's
awesome.
yeah, it's magical.
I'm going to London in April, and
Okay,
I get to do an Air Force base in Germany in June.
that's great. Hell yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. And so tell me about, well, you're a funny guy, you're storytelling. Tell me a story about something weird, hard, stupid, or scary. So Judy Carter's happy today. Tell me something in comedy that you'll never forget that happened, and without telling me the name of the people or the club.
Oh
Or
man.
you can say the club if you want.
No, no, I won't say the club. Oh my God. Um,
Want me to tell you something while you think, or do you got
no,
it?
no, no. I'm just trying to think of which story. I mean, I could tell you the story about. I mean, I told you how I got into Carolines. So I don't know if you want to hear another Caroline story. I had a show recently, where I was headlining, and the show started off okay, and feature went up, or the host went up, crowd was a little tight, and as the show started to progress, you saw how fucked up people actually were. And so when the feature was up, there's one dude over there was just really drunk, and it was like he would go from talkative drunk to quiet drunk, talkative drunk to quiet drunk, and nobody was kicking this guy out at that point. So I so I get up there, I'm headlining, and my whole thing is if I'm headlining and they ask you when you want to light me at 45 minutes. Like I'm the if you're headlining a show, this is my biggest gripe with comedy now. You're not headlining a show unless you're doing 45 minutes or more. Like that's it. If you're doing 20 minutes, you're just closing out the show. You're not a headliner.
Be
If you
real.
think you're a headliner with 20 minutes, you are sorely delusional. You
Yeah.
are living in a fantasy world. So I get up there, I told the guy, let me at 45. I am not 5 minutes into my set, and this dude fucking pops up. I don't know if he went to the bathroom and do a bump, whatever. Chatty fucking Cathy. And so we go back and forth. He calms down. I start to tell some jokes. I couldn't even get through for the first half an hour of this set. I couldn't get through a full fucking joke because this dude in the table of the three other people at his table, they were so fucked up. They were so fucked up. So now this is becoming a back and forth, back and forth. Now I just pull the guy in, and now he's part of the punchline for half the jokes that I'm doing. Okay. But the energy in the room is off. And the guy keeps going. And now I'm starting to get annoyed. Like at the beginning, you're like, I've been a drunk. I know what it's like. I remember my first beer. I remember my first comedy show. Like, I get it. I get it. You want the attention on you. And so when you put the attention on somebody, they quiet the fuck up. And so then when I would go back to tell a joke, then he would start up again. And this went back and forth for like a half an hour. Finally, I looked at the crowd and I was like, I said to them, I go, I can't believe I have to do this. I go, I've never done this. In 9 years of doing stand up, I've never had to do this. And I looked at the dude, I was like, buddy, I go, you got to get the fuck out. You got to go. Get the fuck. I've never kicked anybody off out of a club from the stage, from the stage. And like, that was the moment where I said to myself, I don't care if this dude bum rushes the stage. Like, I mean, I don't. We're friends on Facebook. You've seen the pictures. Like you saw what I used to look like. You see what I look like now. I'm a big dude. Like I hired a trainer. I've got muscles now. Like I'm fucking ripped. And in my mind, I was like, this is not going to be like a Chris Rock situation. I will fuck you up, dude. And he ended up getting up and going. And I ripped on him the entire time that he was leaving. And then his other couple of friends that were there were still very talkative and very drunk. And I ripped on them. And then they ended up leaving. And that was a story where, again, I go back to my New York roots. Like I started in New York City. New York is the hardest market to do stand up in by far. If I don't know what it's like for other industries, but if you can't make it here, if you can make it in New York, you're gonna make it in any market. Like I don't care what crowd you have, I don't care who I have to follow, it doesn't matter. Like New York has trained you to that point where it's like we're good to go. Like this is a fucking what after 9 years. This is a well-oiled machine. Like I'm still learning, but I know I got some skills. And I really credit it to there was a club in Times Square, and any New York comic that's watching this knows the club that I am talking about. It's an acronym. I won't say the name, but it's an acronym, and it is now closed, and rightfully so because they never really paid comics at all. And I
Does it have
used
the word rising in it?
no, 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 no. That's in Princeton, and that's a story for another day.
There used to be a Catch a Rising Star in Manhattan in time around Times Square.
There was a lot of clubs in Times Square back in the day. Yeah. Yeah. And the only one that survived was the greatest club in my eyes, and that's Caroline's. And unfortunately that closed because of not because of anything else, but just rent, New York City real estate, which is cutthroat. But um I was working this club and the dude wouldn't I don't know why he gave me such a hard time, but he would put me on. I would do the check spot on the midnight and 1 a.m. shows. So I was doing a check spot at 1:30 and 2:30 in the morning for a room full of drunks in Times Square. So it's not even like you're not even getting like a real New York crowd. Like you get people from Hawaii, Kansas, Germany, Brazil, like wherever you are. And sometimes the host would be fucked up and like I'd be doing check spots like 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Sometimes I was doing 15, 20 minutes up there. And it was just crowd work because everybody was so fucked up. So it was like, I mean, I've done because of that experience. I mean, I've done whole sets of just crowd. I've done headlining sets of just crowd, 57 minutes, an hour of just crowd work. And it's because of that awful club.
Wow. Isn't
So
that
those are,
amazing? Some of the worst scenarios can be your greatest strength down the road.
yeah. Hmm.
You know, Linda has gone through some health things recently. Are you aware of that?
I saw some stuff. I saw some. Oh my God! So we were talking about that before. Yeah, she is such a saint. I this is now that knowing this, I'm going to message her, and say hi and see if there's anything I can do because yeah, she had started this open mic in she did this open mic in the summer of 2018. And Caroline's never did open mics. They had two. And I was told to bring some of my better material. So I did the material on the first one, and then I hosted the second one. And
Wow.
that's what got me my audition for the New York Comedy Festival. And then that was that. I did the comedy festival. I did Caroline's March Madness, and then I got my breakout show that summer. So in a matter of a year, my entire the trajectory of my comedy career completely fucking changed. Like that because of Linda. Because of Linda, I got past at Caroline's. I got to do one of the greatest shows I've ever done. I mean, I had one of the longest I did an hour and 7 minutes the first time I was ever headlining. And it was at Caroline's. Like it
That's
was
incredible.
yeah, it's so insane. I have a picture of a whiteboard with my original set list. And the picture that I sent you was outside of those infamous fucking doors. I mean, you know it. Any comic that knows Caroline's knows that door. Anyway, and I'm so sorry, but that was my connection to Linda. She's Saint Linda. Saint fucking
That's
Last
so
time I
cool.
saw her, we had gotten lunch at the Second Ave Diner on 77th and First. Because we lived, this is the crazy part. Linda and I lived across the street from each other. So I was on 74th and First on the west side. She was on 74th and First on the east side. It was so crazy. The only that we were split by First Ave.
You mean to tell me Second Avenue Diner was on First Avenue?
Or First Ave Diner. I'm sorry. That's
Oh,
what it was.
First Ave Diner.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, not even First Ave. I'm so sorry. It was Three Star Diner. 3-star diner on First Ave.
Wow. You
Yeah,
know, I made Linda so mad one time, and I regret what I did to her. I made an appointment to get one-on-one with her,
yeah,
one-on-one training. And that day came and I wasn't feeling good. And I wrote her and told her, and she really hasn't felt like talking to me ever since. And I regret that I couldn't make it to that. It seemed like it was a big disappointment or whatever, you know? And
yeah,
I've tried to apologize to her, you know, but it was a legitimate had to drop out thing. I don't take that lightly, but she
yeah,
didn't know how to differentiate a flake. So she was done with me.
yeah. Wow. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think being in New York, people come here with delusions of grandeur and they want to do stand up, but they don't realize how much work it takes. Like it's a fucking job, and if you want to be successful, you got to be committed. And so I'm sure that that was not a reflection of the situation, but maybe a reflection of previous experiences. So, I mean, we've done a bunch of Zoom shows together, and I've known Linda for years, and you were both sweethearts, and so I can only.
Everybody tells me I'm just like her, you know, and that she would love me, you know. But
Well,
yeah,
maybe shoot her a message and say, I've heard you've been going through some things and just wanted to say hello and hope maybe hope you're feeling better. Something like that. Just something boop, that's it. You put a little good karma out there and you never know what's gonna come back.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What's up in the future for you? Where are you what are your what's your dream? What's your dream gig? Who do you want to meet in showbiz that you haven't met? Who do you want to work with? What are some dreams you have?
I want to work with Sebastian Maniscalco. That's my favorite comic right now. Love Sebastian. Obviously Bill Burr because he's fucking Bill Burr. Um, but Kevin Hart, D. Ray Davis. I mean, these are two giant comics. Those would be the four people that I would love to work with. Maybe uh, uh, I love Al. I mean, if I could work with like Ali Wong, Beth Stelling, or oh fuck, I can see her face too. Fuck, I can see her face. I can't. The name is escaping me, but I
What
mean,
she look like?
oh, I mean, I mean, I couldn't even. I mean, she's a brunette. I'll think of it when I get off. That's the thing, and that's the annoying part about it. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
So,
Oh, Michelle Wolf. That's
oh my
one of
gosh,
the redhead.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, that's why I was like, I can't. Yeah.
I
Um.
I started comedy in 2013 in SoCal in the
Nice.
Inland Empire at a little
Okay.
place called Aces. It's not open anymore. And I went gigging with Taylor Tomlinson
Oh, nice. Oh,
when
she's
she
in.
was
Great.
brand new,
Yeah. Wow.
when she was just Taylor on the block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'd love to be able to just talk with her, you know, not I don't expect that she's going to have a 72-year-old open for her, but
Hey.
stranger things have happened. But I'd love to just that'd be just to get to
Yeah.
talk to her would be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you. Somebody that would be very, I think, very cool to work with if he went out on tour would be obviously Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
That would probably be the pinnacle, getting to work with Eddie Murphy because he is such a prolific storyteller. And Raw and Delirious are the two of the greatest specials I've ever seen in my life. Like they still hold true now. Like people would get so offended by the language, but if you look at the performance and the jokes of just how well he was able to maneuver the stage. I mean, the kid was like 18, 22. I mean, so I think that, I mean, to be able to work with him That would probably be up there. That would trump everyone else. Getting to work with Eddie. That would be it. Or Chris Rock. That's, oh my God.
What
Jesus.
about Martin Lawrence? Did you like him?
I did. I did like Martin Lawrence. I do like him. I mean, obviously to work with him would be amazing. I mean, he's one of the greatest top 25, top 50 comics of all time. Um, but I think I identified more with somebody like Chris or with Eddie, just because I like to tell stories and I like observations that just don't that there is no room for error with Chris. His observations are so just spot on. It just boom. And the way he does it, his cadence to say the premise, to repeat the premise, and possibly do it a third time, just to make sure when you hear the punchline, there's no room for error. You know exactly where this joke is going. Or you don't, but like you're on board with like you might not see the punchline, but you're going on that same trajectory. You're on that same path with him. And that's I really dig that.
I think it's really cool when comedians repeat two, three times because we're taught never to repeat
Yeah.
anything. And when they do it, they're proving take all the rules and throw them out. Do just get up there and be who you want to be and be it.
Yeah. It's funny. It was you could tell that I used to watch him because on that the joke that I had about white people, I used to do this part where when I would go from joke to joke in that whole bit, I would say, I'm not racist. I got a lot of white friends. I got a lot of white friends. And I kept going back and back and back. And eventually I ended up pulling it out. But I just remember that was something that really influenced me. So those would be the comedians I want to work with. In terms of where I see myself going, I mean, I wrote a pilot and a screenplay, and that is the next um that's the next thing that I would like to get. I started a production company, so I have these two projects already written, slated. You know, that's where I'm gonna go with that. It was something on my intentions board for this year for 2023, and granted, I could never have imagined what happening this year. But everything happens for a reason, and I'm very grateful. Um, I'm very grateful for what I had to go through, because it prepped me for um, it just prepped me for life. It's like one of those things where people don't want to go through negative experiences, but you learn more about yourself in the negative than you do the positive. And that's why I don't think there's any negative situations. Everything is a positive. It's just how you got to frame it. That's it.
You have to
So,
reframe it.
yeah. So I have those two projects. I want to my goals, I mean, where I want to go. I mean, the three things, work the comedy store, work the comedy cellar, and do JFL. Those are like the three boom, boom, boom. Those are that's it.
So,
Maybe oh my God, if I could, do the Hollywood Improv, just because I mean it's improv. That's right up there with everything. But those are the three things that I would love to do.
man,
You know, get these two projects into production, work these three clubs. Um, I mean, if you could work in a chain, get past in the punchline, funny bone, improv. I mean, then the gates are open. It's very funny. We're it's an interesting time because like I can host, I can feature, and I can headline, but everything boils down now to social media and your followers. So it's like, um, you gotta have you gotta have the followers. So that's unfortunately it's the nature of the beast. So I
I'm
have
I'm thinking that the pendulum is going to swing back because I think they're going to get bitten. It's watering down comedy for one
oh yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So maybe they'll they'll go, yeah, we can fill seats, but are we doing any good for comedy?
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where eventually it will shift, and it's yeah. I mean, I think you just have to be adaptable. I mean, the pendulum will swing back. Everything always does. Um, but in the time being, you can't wait. So it's like you got to get your clips out there. You got to, and this is the thing. People, we all get, and even myself, you get frustrated with social media, but like you're a business, you're a brand. Like I've ran businesses before. I used to own my own company. Like I get it. You got to be out there. You got to be visible. You're not a bookable commodity if no one knows who the fuck you are. It doesn't matter how funny you are. It doesn't. At this day and age, it doesn't matter. I mean, you could see who's doing specials and who's getting opportunities. Sometimes talent isn't the first two things that are on their resume. Social media, are they marketable? And then are they funny? So it's just you got to swallow your pride, you got to swallow your ego, and you got to go with the flow. Like that's it. Just I don't know. That's just how you got to do it. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
I might, like I don't know about you, but 16, 17,000 followers is nothing. It's a lot to me. It's nothing to a club.
yeah.
And
I mean, that'll help get you I mean, that'll anything. I think anything above 10,000 will help you get a one nighter at least. But if you want to get a weekend, 50 to 100 easily. You know, and it's doable. I've seen people transform overnight. One clip, boom. I had a buddy go shoot up 22,000 followers off of one clip. One of my closest friends, my old roommate, all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. Once one clip hit, then the second clip hit, then the second clip hit. And now, I mean, he's just writing his own ticket. And for someone that like he was such an unbelievably hard worker, kind of like myself, working a full-time job, trying to do stand-up. I mean, you're doing shows on no sleep, and to see all this hard work for him pay off, you can't be more proud of these people. I mean, that's again, it goes back to what I'm saying. If you do the right thing, you work hard, you're a good person, and you're funny, it's gonna the playing field will level itself out, you know. And if you're not, you will be exposed. That's it.
yeah,
Eventually, people will find out how talented or not talented you actually are.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you understand why? I just want to touch on this. How come doesn't the comedy world have a union? So we have some rights. So there's some rules that clubs and bookers and other comedians, the way you're supposed to behave.
Um,
Why is that?
because it's easier for people to bitch about things, I think, and I think we're a little all too selfish and egocentric, and no one wants to assume the responsibility of running a union. And we will all grovel. We will all grovel eventually. I remember during COVID, clubs were shutting down. People were like, the tides are turning. We're taking our power back. We can run this table. And eventually the club said, okay, cool, you could do this, and this is what we're going to do. And, I mean, that's why you see, I mean, in New York, it's such a hustle. You have people that won't give you auditions unless you take their class. Like, I'm sorry, I got to pay $400. Yeah, I got to pay $400 to take a class by someone who's not a comedian to tell me how to
Yep.
make money just to audition. I mean, I could. If it wasn't for tourists, this club wouldn't be in existence. That's how insane it is here.
Yeah,
If people won't unionize, they'll never. I don't say never, but
I
I don't
get
know.
it.
They tried to do it in the 70s with the union, and they were picketing, and eventually everything fizzled. And I will tell you what, there was more camaraderie with comics back then than there is now, by far. Because back then it was doing the clubs, doing the hang, writing, and being cool. Now it's um social media. So it's like you're not even rubbing elbows with, I hate to say it, real comedians. You're a personality. You're a gimmick. You're a gimmick. Write a joke.
Thank you. One thing that drives me nuts is a comedian getting up there and going, I love storytelling, don't get me wrong, and I love setup punch. But if you go, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, I've seen people go 15 minutes without one laugh, without one punchline.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I just don't get it. I'm like, where else would you do this? Would you go into art to draw and not use a pencil? I mean,
It boils down to hard work. You
what?
get it boils down to hard work. You get in what you put out. And it's almost like the old adage where after a show when somebody comes up and is like, yeah, I've been thinking about doing stand up. People in the office say that I'm funny, and it's like, I hope you fucking get hit by a bus. I hope you get hit by a bus. I hope someone shits in your coffee cup at work. No, you should not. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And the
People
off
have
chance
no
that somebody,
idea they're attracted to it, but they don't know the commitment behind it.
yeah, no, it's stand-up's the only thing where I ever did it. And the first time I ever got on stage, I was like, this is what I should be doing with the rest of my life. And when things are great, you're like, oh, this is amazing. But it's when you bomb for shows on end, weeks on end, months on end, where you're trying to get a premise and a joke to work and you can't fucking get it. Do you keep getting up there? It's like I played five sports for most of my life, for most of my childhood. I did soccer, football, basketball. I ran track and I played baseball. And my father used to tell me stories when I was a kid where like I sucked at baseball and I didn't like football because I wasn't big. And he just kept telling me, you just got to keep showing up. That's half the battle. Just consistency. Just fucking show up. That's it. It's not, life isn't hard. Just show up. Show up. That's it. Just fucking show up. I don't know. These are moments when I hear myself and you're like, oh fuck, dude, you're definitely in your 40s.
Wow.
Just work hard. Just be good. Just be a good person. Just show up.
I'm in a class.
Okay.
Somebody fronted the money for me to go to a class. I'm in DC Benny's storytelling class. Have you seen him tell stories?
Yeah. I did a show with DC last month and it was fucking great. I love working with him. That dude is, let me tell you, class act through and through. Never had a bad thing said about him. That's how you want to be. 35 years in this business, no peeps, no nothing.
Exactly. I in the first session, 3 hours, I got my friend's money back for her.
Right.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
I didn't spend any money yet. I have to pay her back, but I would have never been able to come up with that chunk of change at one time.
Yeah.
And it's only because of this special angel that I got to even be there in front of him, and I'm crying through the whole session that I have the luxury that I didn't even pay for, and now I have to pay it back. I want to tell you how I met DC Benny. I'll never forget him. I was barking in Greenwich Village for Greenwich Village Comedy Club like 3 years, 4 years ago. Freezing cold. I'm practicing my crowd work on the crowds going by. And this limo, a big black limo pulls up in front of the club. And out come these two hot guys, all dressed up to go to the cellar. And I just noticed it, and the tallest one comes up to me and it was DC. The other one was Reese, Reiss. I can't remember his first name.
Okay.
Ryan Reese.
Oh wow. I just
Yeah.
saw Ryan last night.
Oh, okay. So they
Yeah.
come up to me, and DC's friendly. Ryan could care less. He's thinking about getting out of the cold or whatever. DC took an interest in my life in the freezing cold. Like, what are you doing out here? Like, I'm older, I'm out in the cold, I'm acting like Apple Annie from the old Sinatra movie, whatever that was.
Yeah.
I can't remember who the actors were. I'm out, and he's talking to me, who are you? And we're bantering, and I've stayed communicating with him ever since, just because he took an interest in me. He didn't have to.
Yeah.
And that's
That's,
what I want to be for other people. I want to, that's why I do the interviews, because I want to take an interest in people.
yeah.
Like your story means so much to me
Oh my
to
God.
hear it. The honor, like to be able to be so white privileged that I get to hear your life story. I mean, how white, this is a good white privilege. Kidding. I am white though, but
Oh my
have to,
God.
no, I just the honor to hear your life story from you, right?
Yeah. I'm more than humbled to do the show and to tell my story. And I'm very grateful. I put this in my journal today. I'm very grateful for this. So thank you.
That's so cool. So you have an interesting trajectory that you've already been through. And before you get to my age and croak, what do you have to accomplish? What do you have to accomplish
I don't have
on
to
or off stage?
I don't have to accomplish anything. I have no expectations. I've learned over this last year that when you have expectations, it's like telling the universe that the present moment isn't good enough.
Wow. I have to write that down.
Um, a year ago, a year and a half ago, I thought I had my whole life planned out in front of me, and it went up in smoke. And it fucking devastated me. I quit drugs cold turkey, and what I went through was worse than that. I mean, I was a fucking cokehead. I was a coke addict, and I quit cold turkey after almost overdosing twice. And so when people ask me, how am I doing? How am I feeling? Um, I say I'm alive. So I have no expectations. I don't have expectations to wake up. If I do, that's amazing. That's a fucking gift. And so I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be in this moment. Happy to do this interview. I'm happy to go to therapy after this interview. I'm happy to grab coffee with a very old friend of mine after therapy. I'm happy to go write these jokes. I have no expectations. Things could go up in smoke, but it's how you deal with it. Excuse me. I have no
Yes.
expectations. There's things that I would like, you know, there's things that I'm going to do. I'm going to get married. I'm going to be a father. I'm going to continue to be a working comedian. I'm going to sell my pilot. I'm going to be, I'm going to have the life of my dreams. I already have the life of my dreams. I'm a working comedian. It's like I'm already living it. I survived, you know, I survived.
That's so cool.
In my mind,
I'm so glad you reminded me that expectations take you out of the present, because like sometimes you get so caught up in trying to expect something out of yourself. I don't expect anything out of others, but I expect so much out of myself.
yeah, yeah, you can't. Yeah, just the fact that you're here. That's it.
Tell
It's a
me
fucking,
one thing I need to know. If I'm going to become a good storyteller, and I'm not right now, ask DC. He's seen my notes. If I'm going to be less set up punch
Mhm.
and more storytelling, what is it? What's one thing I need to know?
I think it's two parts. Don't worry
Okay.
about, it's two
What?
parts.
Mom said his computer's gonna die. I gotta plug it in.
Okay, yes.
It's two parts to storytelling. Um, One, don't worry about being funny right away. Just write the story out. And two, be unapologetically authentic. And I don't know if this is because of what I went through a year ago. I don't know if it's because of now officially, being into my early 40s, but I say this with the utmost respect for everything. I don't fucking care. This is my story. This is what happened to me. If you don't like it, you can go fuck off.
I
You can go
love
fuck
that.
off. I've survived death more times than I can count right now. Literally a year ago, twice in a matter of a week, I almost died. And once was the universe, and once and the other time was someone else putting me there.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a scenario. I want to hear you say, I'm gonna give you something like, uh, make up, are you good at improving a story?
I am, but I am very I apologize. I'm becoming very strapped for time because I do have to get going to therapy. It takes me about an hour to get
All
there.
right, just make up an excuse to get off of this interview.
Oh, well, I would love to stay here and continue talking with you. However, I just got a notification on my phone that the N train is running with 20-minute delays back and forth. And if you know New York and you know that you've been here before, you know how awful the trains are, and it's only getting worse. So as much as I would love to continue this, unfortunately, I'm going to have to put a pause in this interview. I'd love to come back and finish it with you, maybe tomorrow at a later date. But as of right now, I'm gonna have to get going just because my therapist, she's a real tough one. She'll beat me if I don't get there in time.
Thank you so much for your time. I'll post this from YouTube out everywhere and appreciate if you'll share it as well. Thank you
Of course,
so much.
so humble.
You're
Thank you.
awesome.
This is amazing,
Yay.
Linda. Thank you. This is the
Thanks,
best way to
Ralph.
start my day. Thank you.
Ralph, and oh, tell everybody where to follow you when your next big show is.
So I am I put all my dates on Instagram, on my website, ralphthemouth.com, ralphthemouth81 on the socials. And if you're in the DMV, come out to Kazi's Comedy Club. I am headlining there January 4th and 5th. That's right, the first weekend of the new year. I will be there. I've got this new hour, and it's been a lot of fun. Crowds really dig it. So come on out
Yes,
in
thank you
person.
so much.
Thank you
Bye, Ralph.
so much.
Ralph.
Bye.